first of all, I want
Yes.
to welcome you back to our interview series. I think the last time we spoke
Thank you so
was
much.
2023, and it was about the first
Yes.
release. Can you take us through the time? What happened between then and this year?
Sure. Well, the main thing that happened is that I was basically knee deep in the songwriting process first and the production recording process later. So, yeah, I mean, I guess this is like the main event. Actually, if I'm being honest, I was already pretty much involved in the making of the new album back when we were talking about my debut the first time. So I guess that's it. Yeah, that I mean, other things happened in my personal life, but as far as music is concerned, this is probably the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It was this one is a bit different in style than the previous release. I think you already said that it was going to be a bit different. We spoke a bit about your musical references back then. What lays to the basis of this release musically?
Well, oh my goodness, so many things, but I would say that it's mostly very influenced by my love of like anything that was coming out of, the UK back in the 80s, 90s. So all of those, alternative rock bands and in some cases, electronic trip hop even bands that were the main export coming out of the British Islands, from shoegaze to dream pop to Britpop, all that sort of stuff. And that is definitely the foundation not only of this record but of my own musical, you know identity as well. I was a fan of these bands way before I got into metal music. Back when I was a kid, I was already very much like fascinated with this specific kind of sound, the melodies, and just like the very distinctive, you know, identity these bands seem to have, their connection with pop music in a way, but at the same time, their ability to funnel that taste for melody into something that was completely like, in some cases, experimental with all those like sweeping effects. And in other cases, it was maybe more like easy to digest, like commercially speaking, but it was still like full of references of so many kinds. So this is definitely like the musical core of the album, 100%.
Yeah. What do you think is the connecting factor between the two releases?
I mean, I definitely think that there were signs on my first album that at some point things were probably going to take a more melodic rock inspired turn. Um, I feel that even though my first album was very much planted in black metal, I feel like there were lots and lots of like pop and alternative rock reference. So I would say that melody and specifically a certain preference for like airy, um, almost luminous chord progressions was already there. It was probably more blended with all the extreme stuff like tremolo guitars and screams and all that kind of like touchstones of extreme metal music. But underneath all that, I feel it was very obvious that I was already coming from, a place that's a standpoint that was very much informed by that kind of music as well. So I would say there's tons of like common ground between the two albums, but other people might disagree. But this is how I see it.
And what we wanted to know. Um, I saw this time you recruited someone to play some instruments for the album this time. I remember you said that you were doing a lot of it yourself before. How did that connection come together?
Well, the person who produced my first album, well, it wasn't really a production kind of job. We were working on stuff together, but he's the singer of this band called Void of Silence, who previously worked with Deha as well. Deha being the producer I worked with on Underheavens. I'm sure anybody who has ever even remotely heard a note from a black metal band is familiar with what he does. But Luca from Void of Silence was already, friends with him. And the moment I told him that I was going to make something fundamentally different, he actually suggested I would reach out to Deha, who previously worked with him on the Void of Silence album, and sort of, try to basically explain to him what I was going to do and if there was any possibility that he could be the right person to do the job. So I got in touch with him. We had a talk over Zoom, and he was already pretty much, enthusiastic. Well, that's basically who he is as a person, but he was very, very much curious and open and really just like willing to listen to me. And so we tried working on one song from the album. I sent him a first demo of one of the songs, and right away it seemed that we basically clicked. Like it just happened. Um, he sent me back his own, pre-produced version of the song, and he was so excited to work on it. He really put a lot of effort into having it sound as close to the final version as possible. And we basically realized that we could really make something out of this. And he didn't just produce the album, but he also helped me in a major way with stuff that I'm not really that good at, such as, bass on some tracks, uh, lots of additional layers of synths to achieve a more textural kind of sound. He played rhythm guitars in a lot of songs, and then there were moments where he would just like suggest little edits or add little melodies, little textural parts, and all of that just worked brilliantly. So he really um, he was really like essential to the way this album turned out.
That's amazing. Let's look a little bit at the songs that you have on there, and let's start with the single Pilgrimage. I think the single was out like 2 weeks ago, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, a week ago, maybe. But yeah, definitely not more than 2 weeks ago. It's
Mm,
still pretty much new. Yeah.
yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the background of this song?
Sure. The whole album is basically, I guess we could say, a sort of concept album that deals with a lot of stuff that happened to me during my childhood, childhood years. And Pilgrimage represents the moment when you, as an adult, as a grown-up person, are going back to your roots to address any lingering feeling, anything that's basically unresolved, in terms of like, the way your childhood affected you and impacted you. Specifically, I wrote Pilgrimage after a trip to my hometown, which is a place that I left behind pretty soon in life when I was like 20 or so. Um, and I went back to my hometown to basically spend time with my family on my father's side. I never met those people before, which is the the weird thing that the whole song is basically about. And it was one of the weirdest, strangest experiences of my entire adult life, and they were family. And so the song itself, the lyrics deal with like how difficult it is to have somebody who shares the same blood as you but doesn't really know you like that, understand your emotional life and why you act the way you act. That's basically it.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds really nice to get to meet some people in that trip. When I
Yeah.
listened to the album at the very first time, it was Spirit's Interlude that jumped out to me. I think it seems to me a bit like a track that you can play around with when you perform it, make some variations of it, and in a way, I guess. Um, what can you tell me about this one?
Well, Spirit Interlude, you definitely got the point. It's one of the tracks that I wrote on my guitar. I don't normally write on the guitar. I normally write the synths first and foremost. That's like the baseline of every song that I write. But sometimes I feel called to just like play chords on my guitar and just like see where it goes. And Spirit's Interlude was one of those songs. Um, I was basically sitting alone in my living room, and I was, just playing these chords, trying to evoke the feeling of um, sadness, but also, a bittersweet feeling where basically there's like an undercurrent of sadness, but at the same time, there are traces of like joyful memories and feelings. It's mostly a song about death. I mean, the whole album is about death. And Spirit's Interlude is specifically about, a body being prepared for burial. The body in question is, I'm sorry, this interview is going to get really gloomy in places, but it's basically about my dad. I wasn't there when his body was being like prepared for burial because I wasn't allowed to be there. But I tried to imagine, once again, inspired by like all of the stories my newfound family shared with me. I basically pictured how it must have been for them to just attend to the body of their loved one and sort of like make sure that he was all ready for his last journey. And that's what the song is about. And so there's sadness, but there's also like a feeling of like tenderness and just like, love. Like obviously the scenario that is being described in the song is quite tragic in a way, but there's also like so much fondness and so many memories and all the love just like pouring out and directed towards the person who has died, and this is more or less the gist of it.
Yeah, you always want to make sure they go on their last journey when they look their best, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. In the night, it seems like it sort of concludes everything in the album. It's leading a bit towards the outro, of
Yes.
course. How do you look at that track?
It's definitely like it's the last proper actual song on the album, and it is the conclusion of the whole like story arc of the album. Um, and it's basically a song that talks about, losing your innocence and just like, going towards your teenage years after leaving your childhood behind and just like beginning this year long process of just like processing everything that you went through. And at first, it's not easy. It's actually quite hard. The way I look at that song is almost like an open-ended question, in that it's basically the beginning of a different story. And it's kind of a bleak song. Like, unlike the other songs on the album, there's not much hope or, light shining through. It's actually quite dark. But at the same time, I made sure that, putting that outro after the song, the album didn't end on a sad note, and instead left, something open to, that kind of uh, hope and, lightness, maybe, just like, this is how things are. This is how things have been for a while, but there's also so much more than that. I hope it makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, I think so. Do you have any favorites on this release?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that The In Between Was a Fever Dream is my favorite song from the album. There are other close seconds. A Summer Burial is definitely a close second. I would say yeah, I mean, I would say they are both favorites in a very similar way and for very similar reasons. And the reasons being that when I hear those songs, I can really hear the influences that shaped this album, mixed with the metal background that both me and the Hub brought to the table. So there's a lot of melodies that remind me of, all the Britpop bands that I love. And then there's also like that punchiness that comes from metal music. So it's a nice blend, and I'm really happy with the way the structure and the melodies in those songs turned out. So yeah, definitely those two. Yeah.
All right. Last time we spoke also a bit about live performances, and at that point it wasn't happening. How do you look at this now?
Oh my gosh. I was hoping something would change, but it looks like it's not going to happen anytime soon. Um, and I think that in a way it's good. Like, there's one thing that I really clarified inside myself about this whole live show thing, and I really don't want to, like, get people aboard, like ask people to play with me, to perform live with me, and then not being able to compensate them fairly for their work. Like, all of the opportunities that are being presented to me right now are mostly scenarios where I wouldn't receive any kind of compensation. Like, I'm being offered like slots to play live, but it's not something where I can say, I get something, and anybody else who performed with me is also getting their share. Like, it looks like it's not happening at the moment, and this is a deal breaker for me, I think, because I can't, in all good conscience, ask somebody to work for me, because that's like, music is work, playing live is
Yeah.
work. Those people, like, people who play live are investing so much money in rehearsals, and getting from one place to the other, and money for gear, and it's time consuming, it's work. And if I ever do that, if I ever play live, I want it to be a situation where people who are working for me and with me are actually getting paid. Like, if it's just me, I can do that for free, no problem. But I just can't ask people to just like work for me for free. It's just, it's a deal breaker.
Yeah,
I
can
can't do that.
imagine. I can
Yeah,
imagine. It's something that a lot of artists struggle with, I think.
yeah,
I rem
absolutely.
I remember.
Especially, oh, sorry, I
Uh,
interrupted you.
No worries. I remember here locally we had a pilot from the government lately to. They had a complete tool to figure out how much everyone should get fairly paid, when it depending on what stage of your career you're in, and then how many people come until a certain maximum, of course. Because if you take a whole
Mhm.
orchestra, that's not possible. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think recently it was out for about a year now, and they said that it was not possible for all the venues to do that for their entire program to be able
Hmm.
to offer that to artists even. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the state of the music industry and the music scene right now is very complicated, and I think in Italy it's probably even worse. I don't know why, but we don't have a very positive attitude towards music and art. It's a very widespread problem. It doesn't just involve music. I think it's a more uh, generic thing where art as a whole is just not really valued or taken seriously. So, yeah, this is part of the consequences.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is what it is, and hopefully, if
Yeah,
you
it
grow
is what it
bigger,
is.
then it may turn around a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, what's next for you then?
Oh my goodness. I have like I'm in that space where I have so many ideas for different things that I want to do, and I need to pause and take it easy and try not to jump into something else right away, because when you start having too many ideas, I think it's probably not a good thing, because it means that you're not focused. And I'm probably not focused right now. So I might take a break, or I might maybe work on a side project. I was thinking about that too. And maybe just like limit myself to, I think, a short EP for of the Muses, where I just record like two songs tops, and then just do that, and then take time to figure out what it is that I want to do in terms of like a third full length. And I'm probably just going to do that, honestly, and then see if I can funnel some of those loose ideas into something like a side project. I was thinking about like it, sort of going back to uh, the noisier, harshest, more violent end of the spectrum of my influences, but like doing that in another setting, not with this project, because I feel like the trajectory of this project is going somewhere else, and it's just not going to go back to that place anymore. But I would definitely love to do something in that vein, just with more noise and electronics in the mix, maybe. I don't know. I'm just yapping. I told you I'm a bit unfocused at the moment. There's definitely a lot of things that I would like to do, but we'll see.
All right, any last words?
I mean, the first time we talked, and you asked me about closing remarks, I was basically like, there's people dying. That's important. You should give a shit about it. And here we are again, a little over a year later, actually almost 2 years later. And yeah, people are still dying. Not much has changed. So I'm afraid it's going to be the same thing as
Hmm.
back then. Like, people are being killed, and I feel that people should give a shit about it, because it's important and it's bad. I hope we all agree on that.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, I know there's not much we can do, but and I know that maybe people are feeling discouraged, and they're like, well, I can't do much, so I might as well save the effort and do nothing. But no, actually, even just a really small drop in the ocean is enough. If you can't do anything else, just do what you can do, I mean, just try, just put some effort into it, even if it's just like 5%.
Yeah, if everyone is doing
That's
that, we're still getting a lot done.
yeah.
All right. Thank you
Exactly.
very much for your time.
Thank you so much,
Looking
Sabine. It was
forward
a pleasure.
to see how the album is going to work out for you. And,
Yeah, I'm
until the
curious
next
too.
one.
We'll see. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.